What's going on? How's it going, Chicanos? I gotta talk about my trip. I gotta try to make this is not a long video, but I got a lot to talk about that I wanted to talk about. I have to remember 14 years ago, I went to Santa Fe, Michoacan. Yes, I've been to Mexico 14 years ago when I was 13 years old. It was Christmas, New Year vacation, school break. I was out there for 16 days. No, it was not my family. It was my little brother and sister, their grandma. It was her husband's family. I went with my cousin, which was his legit grandma, and but yes, I went there one time. I never got to go back because they never went back again. But I don't even know them no more. So too bad that I never got to go back. But let me tell y'all this. This even me going to Mexico helps me reflect on how they didn't even understand their cultural identity out there because I don't speak Spanish and my cousin didn't speak Spanish and people were tripping out on us. Everywhere was I heard everyone was tripping out town and like what you guys don't speak Spanish, like why not, where your parents from, people from town to town, and one guy see me walking and he was like, hey, come here, in English. And so like when people would talk to us in English out of nowhere, I would trip out and I started understanding that people knew who we were and people were, hey, anytime someone knew who we were and they like this is what happened. The guy called me, hey, come here, in English, and then he's like, my cousin told me that you're the one that's visiting that don't speak Spanish. He's like, he lived in Oregon. I ended up hanging out with this guy the past days that I was there, and he was like, I heard about you guys in the other town over at a party. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, you guys are being talked about the not speaking Spanish and being the Americans from out here coming out here and stuff, and because it's mostly family, and so man, it was just crazy, just the whole experience when we went with her brother-in-law had a son that was 10, 3 years younger than me and my cousin. He was already talking about like I got a girlfriend out there, she's 15 and everything. Oh no you don't, no you don't. You don't got nothing out there. You ain't no Mac Daddy pimp. You only 10. But which I should have known he wasn't lying. There I remember like when we were already out there that first day, I think it was like just it was man, thinking about it is always fun. Like the first day, I remember even after or the second day or something, like we were trying to play handball with him or something. I was just trying to school him up. Like we already got to start meeting people, meeting the kids. He already knew everybody. And then, I remember those girls came out that he was talking about, like five of them. I was like, oh, they hit the corner. I was like ready to be all right, get my cool on, and I don't even know how to talk to them, so he was translating everything. But when we went to go kick it, they were like, all right, let's go hang out over here at their pad. I'm like, what? Like, you know, we're all hanging out in the room. I think this is all first day. I think this is all first day. I'm pretty sure that girl that he was talking about, she was like 5'8". This fool's like 4'8", 10 years old. She just starts kissing on him like he was saying. Me and my cousin looked like, what? Like he shut me up. He schooled us like, so, and then these two sisters, they were chilling, kicking it, and me and my cousin started pulling out our money, and then they were just what? They seen I had 2,000 pesos because we both got $200 from our parents, flipped it to 2,000 pesos. We were balling out there. But then those two girls, yeah, those two sisters were both kissing me. I was like, what? But I mean, some people, y'all, you don't want to hear too much about that. It was nothing deep. Like, just, dang, they just were kissing people. Like, dang. And they were, it was just crazy interesting. And then he was in line though. I was like, man, this fool shut us up though on that part. He wasn't woofing on him having a girl. She was waiting for him to probably be 18 so he could get sent back because Me and my cousin met girls who already were down to come back with us, down to get married and all that. And there was this lady, she was like, "You want to take my daughter home?" The dude actually, my grandma, her husband, it was his sister, I believe, saying that I could be with her daughter, and then she was like, kiss her on the cheek. This was all in Spanish, so to tell you, you got to remember, I don't speak, so everybody we were talking to, people were either translating it, or they knew a little bit of English, or we were just like pointing shit out. I was trying to speak Spanish, I was catching on and saying words, they were pointing, like, it was just, hey, so, you know, I was crazy. Like girls, like that stuff's true. You could, girls are willing to go with you. Obviously, that part's true, I guess. I seen grown men. I remember I was talking to this one girl out there. She spoke English, and she was like 15. I was, so she was older than me, and then I was talking to her. I would talk to her all the time, and then I was talking to her at a party, and then I was just sitting there cool talking to her, and I was gonna ask her to dance, but it wasn't my style with the way they are dancing, and I was thinking a slow song like you wanna dance, but it just wasn't me. And then this older dude, like 40 years old, cowboy hat and all that, he comes up and asks her to dance. I'm like, what? You know, he's dancing, hugging on her. I'm like, damn, like, it's crazy out here. Like, you know, even I almost got into a couple of fights out there, but I wasn't even trying to fight, even though I was a young wild in middle school when this dude tried to approach me because I was singing the 50 Cent "What Up Blood, What Up Cuz" song. This one, they were riding by. He hopped off his bike. He started speaking in Spanish, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And the young boy one was translating, and then he was like, you want to fight? He's like, I don't. He's like, what's up, you bang? In English, he was speaking like broken English, and then I guess he was from LA. He lived in LA, and he was like saying "Su Teresa" or something, I think. Or I can't remember, but he was trying to bang, and he didn't like me singing the blood and that blood 50 Cent song. He's like, I know that song, something. He didn't like. I was just like, what? Like he didn't like me singing that song because I was just singing it out loud, like, what up, blood? What up, cuz? What up, gangster? Just slapping, walking around, and he was rode by on the bike, and he hopped off. I was like, what? And then another fight I almost got into. I don't even remember, but I wasn't even trying to get into no fights. Like I was just cool. I was like, I'm good. Like in the town they had like a open this open area, and you could just see this dude locked up in the jail. I seen him like this town drunk. I remember he was trying to talk to my grandma, and her husband started kicking that dude. Just he started literally kicking him in his ass with his boots. I ain't never seen no grown ass man kick another grown ass man in his ass actually with some boots actually. Boom boom. And I seen that fool in the town jail. It was just like a single cell. It looked like it was in the big building, and you know, and it was just crazy, the whole experience of going into Chihuahua. When we entered the state of Chihuahua, seeing the military cop, whatever they are, and the Ford F-150s, and all in the state, going through that state, or even just jamming through the country, like they were all with the M16 strapped up, 25 fools, and all sitting around the truck, standing up in the middle, packed, 25 foods in the back, two in the front. Every 20 miles, we had to pay a damn toll booth, like 100 pesos, 80 pesos. That was like $8 at the time, more than uh, in the U.S. at the time. Going to the Bay Area, it was crazy because cops were just strapped up, like, or the military just right there, like everything, every time, just guards, foods and trucks, mobbing, just my cousin was telling me that when he was in town, the cops hit him up and said, "Hey, why you out here?" So they automatically talked to him in English in the regular town, like, "Hey, you should get home. You don't need to be out here this late." He's like, "All right, I'm already going home." He told me like we would catch stuff like that. When people automatically knew who we were, and they would automatically speak to us in English, and it was crazy. Like what? Like it was just trippy. Like people knew who we were and try to respect. And to tell you the truth, we found out from the boy Juan that his family that lived there wasn't really fond of Annie of of his grandma, my cousin's grandma, bringing us there too. Supposedly, when we got there, they said, "Oh, they're gonna be troublemakers here." Like they weren't really too fond of it. Like, "Oh, why you bringing these foods here?" Like, damn, like we don't want these kind of foods here. And yet they don't even speak Spanish. These watered down ass Mexicans, but they don't even understand the culture when I learned about it. So people out there ain't even talking about uh, cultural identity, obviously, in the right way. But it was just a whole different story. Like, I went to the big city out there, Morella. And out there, yes, y'all could laugh. Me and my cousin got ripped off. We spent 500 pesos on a pair of Nike Cortezes. Yeah, we got ripped off. We should have paid 60 pesos or 50 pesos because we were in the big city and the little shoe store. So yeah, we got ripped off big time. Thinking about it, we shouldn't have paid 500 pesos for a pair of shoes. We should have paid 60 pesos for those. Maybe no more than 100 pesos, $5. Man, but that's basically, though we were in this city like for a couple hours. It was fast though being in this city. I remember it being this big. It was a cool experience being in that city and getting ripped off. Something I'll never forget. uh, but let me tell y'all though, just on that note, I remember just uh, you know being able to buy beer. People were selling us alcohol or beer, this drink called New Mix, and they weren't tripping because we're not from there. They don't sell their kids that are from there, people's kids, alcohol and stuff, but they were selling it to us, the people who had their own little stores that were a part of their house. So, me and my cousin basically, we spent the $500 on the pair of shoes that we shouldn't have spent that much on. We bought gifts for our family. Some pants. I remember we barely spent any money on that stuff because we bought those at like swap meets. We went to other big towns and went to the swap meet areas and bought some clothes where those places were cheap. They had Cortezes there for like 5 pesos, I remember, and I didn't even want to buy them. I should have bought them. They were the black ones. I should have bought hella shit. I should have bought so much shit thinking about it now, but I wasn't even. I don't even know. Me and him were basically spending our money in town when we were with everybody, kicking it, buying beer for everybody and food for everybody like the little people who had food stands and stuff that were a part of their house, spending money on that. And so the most thing we spent our money on is the $500 peso Cortezes that we got ripped off on. And, so, man, it was just crazy being out there. I remember, uh, just trying to communicate with people. I was still kicking it with people and not even, like, after a while, me and my cousin, we even were kicking it with people not even at the same time. Like, all right, you go with them, or I'm about to go with these people. We didn't even have one, that little translator. He was even going and kicking it with his own people. I don't even know. I think he was always with that girl, I think, too, at that same time. So it was crazy because we would be off, I would be off, we would be off doing our own thing. It was crazy and just not even being able to communicate with people, but we're still trying to communicate like, hey, like this and that, like. It was just crazy going on a 3 mile bike ride to watch a soccer game, and then those fools won and stuff. They said that I could have played. The coach is like, "You want to play? You could play." I was kind of like, "Nah, I'm cool." Like, I don't know why. I was just being cautious out there. Like I ain't trying to break no leg, nothing out there. I wasn't trying to do. I was even though I think about that, that would have been something fun. That one thing I should have done. But man, that was crazy. It was cool. We three of us on one bike, like we're on this mountain hill, and then bam, there's the field like down this hill. And then I came back, my cousin talking about him and the boys got chased by these dogs and stuff in town. 7 dogs chased them, and then crazy, man. It's just crazy. Everything was a whole experience. The pizza that we got made for us because uh, we were like, man, we want some like so-called Americanized food. And then my grandma had some people made some pizza for us. They put hot dogs, homemade salami on it. It was crazy. We were like, what the hell? Straight homemade pizza. And then she was bringing it down the street to us, and everybody seen it like, well, look at these fools getting a pizza made. And because especially me, they called me huarache out there because which is, if some people don't know, it's like a slipper, a shoe, some type of foot covering. And they call me Wadache because I brought like damn near the four pair of shoes that I had. I brought them all, like four or five, and I bought those pair of shoes that I said also. So they were like, well, they see me that I was changing shoes out there. Like, man, I had the Air Force Ones. I don't know. I remember. I know I had the Air Force Ones, and I can't remember what other shoes I had. But they were like, dang, this fool had shoes, because those fools were working in the same shoes and playing with us in the same shoes. Like the kid fools that who were like 16, 17, and 15 and stuff. They were already not going to school, trying to work and help their parents. And everybody had their own food. Um in their backyard, the chickens. That was the only time I seen roosters fight. And I remember like I guess when every time we were asleep, they would do their farming at that house, but we never seen anybody do it because we would always be asleep from coming in late. And we actually kind of were a disturbance because they would only get a gallon of water a day, and that they would come at like 4 in the morning, pour it in the top of the bucket that's on top of their house, and it would drain down to their shower system, their stuff where they wash dishes and all that. And I was always felt like I had to take a shower every day, and that was something they didn't do. That's a waste of water. They would take showers like every other day or something. And even on a messed up note, they had a sink full of water, right, one time. And then when I just thought it was a sink, and I put a fork in there, and but I think I took it out. I don't remember if I left it in there or not, but I guess I messed it up. They needed that was for something else. I thought, and then they were like, "Hey, who did?" I was like, "Oh, damn!" Like they were pissed. I think like I messed up their water by putting a dirty fork in there in this clean water. And then I guess I don't know, they had to drain it. I think like, well, why didn't y'all could have used it for something else? Like, but you know, it was just crazy, just being out there, talking to people, seeing all the eating when we were coming back, eating at McDonald's. We stopped at Juarez again or something at some McDonald's, and they put beans in their McGriddle. I was like, what? So I'm trying to just, long video, trying to think of everything, but overall, as what I learned even at that time, it was just at that time I learned to really be thankful for the way on how I lived as being a so-called American, as I understood as being 13 living in the United States, that, you know, even though we were struggling and I lived in the struggle, I knew that like I had more obviously, and I understood what that so-called second world or third world. I don't know what certain parts are third world in Mexico. That part wasn't too bad. People had that town was built. It was together. It wasn't hella trashy. There, people had cool houses to live in, but I understood on what it meant to have even less than what I thought people lived in the United States from what I seen. So, even as now I understand how people still don't even didn't understand the cultural sense either. Um, People not saying like, it don't matter that they don't speak English because that's not our true culture and heritage. Also, and I didn't learn. So everything was real Spaniardized out there. Like on Christmas Day, certain houses would have murals and shrines in honor of baby Jesus. They would put the little setup together, and people would go to the houses and they would have the plastic baby Jesus, and they would bring him outside, and everyone would kiss the baby Jesus. I remember I ended up having, like, if you would walk by or something while they were doing that, and I walked by a couple of them, you would have to kiss it, or if you walked by one, I think you had to stand there and watch it like it was just rude to pass it on or something. So like when I was kicking it with people we had to stop and kiss a couple of plastic babies and stuff. And then on New Year's, we were driving around from town to town, slapping big booty hoes off the Friday CD, 'cause this dude borrowed it from my cousin, and they loved the beats out there. They loved the 50 Cent, Go Shorty, it's your birthday. They loved anything with beats, and they loved beats. If it was a beat slapper, they were like, let me hear that. Like, even though, like, remember, I wasn't being able to communicate too much very well with each other, and I remember watching Jay and Silent Bob with them. They were cracking up, even though they didn't know what they were saying. But those fools are doing dumb stuff in that movie. Jay and Silent Bob being 13 and 10 years old. Yeah, it's funny. And then, being out there, I remember one day it was Juan. It was my grandma's brother-in-law. It was that boy that we went with his father's birthday, and they had a party for him in the little town hall that they got. And then I remember we drank our soda up at our table. We had our little friends at a table, and then we're like, man, we don't got no more soda. And I was like, man, go get another one. Well, like, nah. I was like, bro, this is your family's party. Like, go grab that one for us off the soda. They're like, oh yeah, that's true. And he went and took it off the table, right? And we're drinking, and then this dude comes up. He's like, hey, I think he's speaking Spanish. I can't remember at first, and then I'm like, wait, what? But I think he was also speaking English because he knew who we were. And then and we're like, I'm like, wait, like he's like, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be saving some for other people trying to lay discipline on us. And I was like, being a so-called rude, cocky American kid, I was like, I'm not, I'm saying this is how they probably thought and seen us like, you know, and especially because what I told them, and y'all are gonna, I was a fool for saying this, and then. And then I was just like, hey, like I was like that. This is our family's party. I was like, this is his father's party. His mom threw this. This is actually his father's birthday party. They put this stuff together. This is his. He's like, oh, when I told him that, like, I was like, so I mean, he was like, all right, like, all right though, like, still just he was like, and he was the secretary of the mayor. That's right, the mayor. I remember the little mayor of the town. He was sitting at the table, and I think he had him. That's right. Come and say something. His little secretary or whatever he was, left hand man, and then the mayor of the town though just dressed like a regular cowboy hat, flat flannel shirt, but the secretary was like all in a suit and stuff. And then I can't remember though, but after I was just being rude, and then I was just like USA, 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 shouting hella loud. Me and my cousin, yes, bro, we were doing that, like being fools out there, like. Man, it was crazy. We met this one dude. They were like, "Hey, speak to my cousin." They were saying it in Spanish, telling me to speak to his cousin, like, "Speak, speak." And they kind of knew English words, and they were telling me to talk to them. I was trying to talk to them, like, "What's up? How's it going? What's your name? What's going on?" And like he was like, he didn't know what I was saying. He was like, "Speak to him." Like I was like, "What does he speak? Speak to me what you could speak." I remember telling me like, "Talk to me," and then he's like. I'm not even lying, y'all. He was like the Mexican food from that town. He was like, I was like waiting for him to speak to me. He was sitting down, and I was standing up, and I was like bending down because it was loud. We were at the function, and then he was like, I want you to meet my cousin. He speaks some English. Someone else I think was translating too for it. And then he was like, here he is. And then I was like trying to talk to him, bending down. And then he was like, looked at me, and then I was like, what could you say? He's like. What's up, my nigga? Oh no, me and my cousin were like, what? He's like, what's up, my nigga? Like, oh my goodness, y'all, like, I can't believe he said that. Like, he listened to Ice Cube, it was crazy. And so, I don't know, I just gotta know that, being in Mexico, it was just it was real lovely to be around just my people too at the same time, even as being a kid. And even though the language thing and the cultural misunderstanding and all that. But overall, just being around my people, our people, it was real good. I would love to live like that. To tell you the truth, I wouldn't mind just living amongst my people and just seeing my people every day. And but not in that colonial sense, but Latino and all that stuff. Y'all already know, etc. But I mean, have any of y'all been to Mexico, especially deep down in the state, not like just Baja California, but like or just like Juarez or something. Like some of y'all Chicanos ever been to Mexico? And if you're from Mexico, tell me where you're from. If you know where I'm talking about, if you're from Michoacan or somewhere around Michoacan, uh, holler at me, let me know. And I just I remember we would go to all the churches stopping on the trips. They were stopping and thanking Jesus and the Virgin Mary and all that at these churches. I remember, and it's just crazy because everything is in support of the Latino and Spanish identity out there. When I overall think about it now and remembering everything, and then it was just a whole experience that I'll never forget those people. And I know from when I used to talk to the people that I went with still like 8 years ago already because I'm 27. I haven't seen them for over 10 years. The person that I went with, my grandma, at the time. She always said growing up as a teenager, like they always remember you. They always talk about you too. They'll never forget you guys, all those kids out there. Because the only pictures that I had too, I should have brought them out, is of us slaughtering, not me, of them slaughtering pigs. They slaughtered these pigs up, and my cousin took a bunch of pictures of it, and they were like next holding, I don't know if they were holding a spine I got of one picture. It was just crazy, and it was just a whole experience, a whole good trip out there. Like, I'm trying to remember everything that I did to tell y'all the funny parts, how I got ripped off, how I almost got into fights, and trying to be cautious. The girls, on how people said I could take them home. The people just talking to us in English, tripping out on us that we didn't speak English. People already knowing who we were, the cops, to my cousin, and you know, people they knew that we had uh, people heard that we had a handfuls of money on us and all that, and cause people were talking, and so it's just real interesting. I'll never forget being out there. I would love to, if I would go back to Mexico, I'll go back to Santa Fe, just show up in that town. Uh, I wonder, it probably, I don't know if it looks the same. Every people stuff changes in 15 years, so it probably didn't change too much. I seen some supposedly pictures of what this town looks like. It looks a little different, but not too much. But I mean, lit. So thanks for y'all hearing my story of going to Santa Fe. I'm just trying to remember it. It was probably a long video. But I mean, some of y'all ain't never even been in Mexico, and people are surprised that I've been in Mexico. Trust me, a lot of people be surprised. Like, what? Yes, I've been to Mexico. I got to experience it, and I'll never forget it. And it's something that, I'm not gonna ever try to forget. And being in this city was crazy too. Being in the capital, like I was saying, being in the capital was so fast I could hardly remember it. But I remember it being so big like this and getting ripped off for $500 pesos. But thanks y'all for listening. Tell me about if you ever been to Mexico. I just wanted to talk about, you know, an experience and to let people know that yeah, what some of my videos and stuff that I talk about are remembering my trip that I've been to Mexico, and that surprises people for some reason when you tell them that. And peace out, y'all. Thanks, Chicanos, for listening. Give this a like, leave your comments on Mexico. Peace.